Coming to paperback and Kindle this fall, E-Steam Blast from the Past. Hell's aspiring angel takes on her demonic doppelganger in this time-traveling, action-packed E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order your copy of E-Steam Blast from the Past on Kindle with a bonus E-Steam comic or for the paperback this fall. One of my viewers sent me a link to a video of a Texas high school football game where one of the players, after being ejected from the game by a referee, decided to rush out onto the field before the next scrimmage and then tackle and body slam that referee to the ground. Now, usually when boys start to play games like football, they are usually taught to respect male authority figures like their coaches. Unfortunately, in this incident, it's clear that this young man did not learn anything about male authority, and in this incident where he decided to rush out onto the field, he participated in the dysfunctional beta male behavior that I talk about in depth in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that this football player who decided to rush out onto the field was one of these textbook beta males, and he was one of these beta males who really had a hard time dealing with male authority and had a hard time dealing with male authority figures. Because usually boys who grow up with their fathers in their lives know that if they are going to be a part of something like team sports, they have to respect the leadership and authority of individuals who are in charge, like their coach, and like authority figures such as the referees who are moderating the game. Unfortunately, when you have a beta male who comes from a single mother household, in most cases, they only know how to acknowledge female authority figures and look to submit to female authority figures. And when they are placed in an environment where they have to respect the authority of a male authority figure, they don't see that male authority figure, such as a coach or a referee, as somebody they need to respect, because growing up inside of that female headed household, he's learned that a male is not somebody he should see as a leader or an authority figure, and he should not submit to the authority of an older male who has been put in charge and somebody who has power in situations. And this is something I talked about in depth early in my book, The Man Crisis, about how these boys who grow up inside of these single mother households oftentimes don't know how to respect a male authority figure, and how this can lead to them winding up into trouble. And this is a textbook case of what happens when a boy does not learn how to acknowledge male authority. What happens is that boy winds up doing something like getting in the face of a referee inside of a high school football game, and then winding up getting ejected. And now after attacking this authority figure, this boy may possibly wind up being expelled from his high school, or possibly wind up getting kicked off the team. And this is what happens whenever, again, you have a boy raised in a home with a single mother or in a home with a very weak father. When you have a boy raised in a home with a single mother or a weak father, he does not understand the importance of acknowledging the male authority figures and respecting those male authority figures and the decisions that they make, even if those decisions are detrimental to them. And this boy really didn't understand what consequences were going to come not only to himself but also to his teammates. So I'm thinking that this boy was brought in to this football team in order to try to teach him some sort of discipline and character about being a man unfortunately, it does not seem like the lessons really stuck with him about having that discipline and self-control that a man is supposed to have. Now, oftentimes you will be in a situation again like a football game, and when things are not going right, the whole thing is that a boy has to learn how to navigate through his emotions. And yes, he may be upset about being ejected from that game for whatever conduct he's participated in, but he cannot act impulsively on his feelings like the way this beta male wound up acting impulsively on his feelings. Because there are consequences for going out here and acting impulsively on your feelings, and the consequences that may face this boy is he may possibly wind up getting expelled from school, or he may wind up getting kicked off the team, because in team sports you have to look out for all of your other team members, and you have to make sure that you're doing things that allow the team to benefit. And he wasn't looking out for his fellow teammates. No, this young man was so caught up in his feelings about this referee ejecting him that he could not think about how that was going to affect his fellow teammates and how it was going to affect the outcome of that game. And that's something that most people have a problem with these days, especially these beta males. They don't understand where how to respect a male authority figure. They don't know how to understand what the boundaries are as related to dealing with conflict, and they don't know how to deal with a authority figure giving them a penalty. No, these males, whenever things don't go their way, what happens is they wind up exploding in rage, acting on their impulses, and then winding up doing some harm to somebody else. And when, again, in a team sport, when you do harm to somebody like an authority figure, like a referee, the penalty not only affects that individual, it also affects all the members of that team. And that's something, again, a lesson that a boy needs to learn whenever he's playing team sports, that it's not just about you, it is also about your team members, and your behavior not only reflects on you, it reflects on all the other players on the team. And that message, again, did not seem to resonate with this young man, who just decided to act on his emotions. And on acting on his emotions, he wound up doing a lot of harm to his team. And again, I see this happen all the time with a lot of these single mothers. They bring their boys into these teams in order to learn male life skills. Unfortunately, the dysfunctional way they have been raised over the years winds up preventing them from learning those male life skills, because they don't have that discipline or that resolve, and they don't really understand how their emotional behavior harms others. So they'll come into this sport and they'll think that they can just go and act on their own. But again, when you're on a team, you're not acting on your own. You have other team members you have to look out for, and they want to win too. And when you act out impulsively, you cost them a victory, and you may actually cost them penalties later on. That's something many beta males don't really think about as related to their actions, because they think that the world is all about them, but the world is not all about you. And that's something that beta males sadly don't learn in many cases, like this young man in this game. He didn't learn that when you're playing the game of football, it's about you looking out for your teammates, and he wasn't looking out for his teammates in this situation. He got caught up in his emotions, and he let his emotions have him make a decision that wound up hurting his fellow teammates in the long run. And this is why it's important for boys to have a father in their life, so they can learn male life skills and male survival skills, because A father is going to teach you that when you are outside and you're a part of the team, your behavior not only reflects on you, but it also reflects on the team. And that's why whenever something happens like you getting ejected, you have to take it like a man, walk off that field, and no matter how angry you are, you don't attack a referee because a referee is an authority figure and you're supposed to respect his authority the same way you will respect your father. And when you have a young man out here going out here challenging male authority figures like referees, then it's a bad indicator because if he'll challenge a referee, there's a chance that he'll go out here and challenge a police officer. And if he challenges a police officer, chances are this boy is going to wind up dead at the hands of the police because if he cannot respect a male authority figure like his coach or a male authority figure like a referee, then when he gets in an encounter with law enforcement, he's going to go out here and act on impulse, and that impulse may wind up leading to him catching some bullets in the chest and winding up 6 feet under. And that's why it's important to teach your boys respect for male authority figures and respect for male leadership because they're going to go out into that world and they're going to have to deal with male authority in most cases because most bosses are men, law enforcement are men, and they're growing up again in homes where they've primarily learned to submit to women. But in the real world, you're going to have to deal with men, and you cannot see these men as the same as you. These men have titles, these men have authority, and you have to acknowledge and respect their authority when they are in positions of power. And if you don't acknowledge their authority and positions of power, then you will wind up suffering as a result. And that's a lesson that this boy really needs to learn before he leaves that high school, because if he enters the real world and goes to the college football situation, those people at the colleges, they're not going to put up with that nonsense of him attacking male authority figures like referees when these games have major consequences like going to a bowl or going to the Big Ten and winning championships. They're not going to put up with a player like this, and chances are he's not going to get benched. He's going to get bounced because when you have a coach wants all of his players on the same page, and the first page of his book is you respect your coach's authority and you respect the authority of those referees who are running this game, because this is not just about you and your feelings. This is about everybody on this field and their goal of winning these championships, and they don't have time for loose cannons like this beta male who has already previously had issues with authority figures. He's not somebody who any coach would consider to be an asset to their team, because when you have a loose cannon like this and he goes out here and explodes in rage, he's the kind of guy who's going to cost you 15-yard penalties and possibly cost you entire touchdowns. He's going to cost you games, and if you have a guy like this and he's on your team, you've got to get that guy either some counseling or just he's going to wind up having to leave the team, because there is no I in team, and the beta male oftentimes thinks it's all about him. But when it comes down to things like team sports, it's never about you. It's always about your other teammates, and it's always about looking out for what's best for them, because you're not just doing this by yourself. You are a part of a group, and you have to think about all the members of the group. And that lesson, sadly, has not been learned by this player. He's still acting like an individual and not thinking about the group. And if he cannot, when you have guys like this and they act like this, it's just a really, really bad situation. And it shows how this boy is in crisis and he desperately needs an intervention by responsible men, because if he goes out into the world acting like this, he's not going to make it to full manhood before he turns 21, because either he's going to go out here and mess up his life and mess up his chances of ever playing college football by disrespecting a coach or a referee, or he's going to run into one of these police officers, and that's going to wind up being the end of his life. So he desperately needs an intervention by some men in the community, because the way he's going, he's not going to become a man, and he's not going to be a man who's going to be successful, because if the way he's going right now, attacking authority figures like this, he's on his road to two places. He's either going to wind up in prison, or he's going to wind up in a body bag 6 feet under. So this is a textbook beta male, and he's a male in crisis and one in desperate need of an intervention by other men in the community before he goes out into society and winds up exploding in a rage where he participates in a spectrum of violent behaviors. Because again, if he'll attack an authority figure like a referee during a football game, then there's a high chance he may wind up attacking a police officer in the future. Now, if you want to learn more about why males like this go out here and participate in violent and impulsive behavior, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBookstore, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play. And it's a book that could possibly save the life of your son or any male family member in your home. It has transformed lives all across the globe, and I'm hoping somebody gives this boy a copy of The Man Crisis this holiday season, because this boy needs to see where he's going and how he's headed down a road to self-destruction. Now, if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to, again, pick up The Man Crisis, you can find it on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, Vampires Stalk the Darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com.